Welcome back for a second episode of Growing an Ice Cream Bean Cutting. It's day 49 of this series. As you can see, there are some leaves down there, but I don't think they'll get too big. I think they're just backup shoots for the main foliage up top. And as you can see, the alternative minor stems have different colors, yellows and reds, faint reds. And this new foliage is sort of pulling a mango in that it sort of starts off a little bit reddish as well. But otherwise than that, the foliage on the lower extremities doesn't seem to be doing that well. All the growth is occurring on top. And this is supposedly a very fast growing plant according to the guy at the nursery that sold this to me. So I'll take his word for it. Those look like extra floral nectaries on top. Otherwise, I don't know how to describe them. They sort of look like little plant warts. And they're typically not that big, extra floral nectaries, that is. And this plant has rather robust backup shoots on the top as well. It has these different like pseudo leaf structures. I forgot what they're called, but they pop up all over the place, and you can see them at the joints. So this plant is definitely not shy about expending resources to have all these backup buds in case something goes wrong elsewhere. And as you can see, this foliage sort of has this hairy, maybe powdered appearance to it. Those extra floral nectaries aren't sticky or anything, so I don't know for sure if they're extra floral nectaries. The anatomy of this plant is a little peculiar compared to other plants, and the leaves are very droopy. But since I'm fertilizing, I think that's the way it's going to be. With full sun, the leaves are going to get very big, and as to how big they can get, who knows. At this point in the series, I thought maybe they'd get above 8 inches in length, but I'll show you later on what the measurements are. So I was just fertilizing. A typical fertilizer regimen consists of dissolved Miracle-Gro all-purpose plant food with 2 crushed vitamins thrown in. So that's 1 big scoop of the Miracle-Gro in about 1.75 gallons. That's about 7 liters. And then I spray everything off with a garden hose so there's not fertilizer sitting on the leaves. And now I'm spraying this Bayer Bio Advanced 3-in-1. It's anti-mite, antifungal, anti-disease. So actually, I think I may have mentioned in other videos that it wasn't doing a good job at keeping pests at bay. Maybe it's not intended to be an insecticide. I'm not sure. I'd have to go look at the label again. But on day 56, as you can see, there are 7-inch leaves, 17 centimeters. So that's pretty big for a plant at this stage. I was rather shocked at how big that biggest set of leaves were. So it's day 63. Actually, these are leaflets, and everything you see here, like this rather sad looking one has 3 leaflets on a compound leaf, and this one in the center has 6. So it sort of reminds me of Tree of Heaven in that it's supposedly very fast growing and it has compound leaves, but otherwise they're not that similar. So it's day 70. You can see there's a little bit of burning on one of those leaves. I think that happened due to the transition from the nursery where it didn't get full sun to this full sun environment in my front yard or courtyard or whatever you want to call it. So I don't think that's going to repeat. There's really no rationale behind why that would continue to happen on these other compound leaves, and I don't really see burns elsewhere. So I think that's just an adjustment in the plant due to having a very high chlorophyll density or chloroplast density in the nursery, not being in full sun. And now it's experiencing full sun, and the leaves that were starting to develop from those days in the nursery are not dealing well. But these new ones look really pretty, and it sort of has, I don't even know how to describe that color. Maybe it's a little bit of a chocolate green, something like that. If you have a better descriptive color of that, just let me know in the comments. So the plant is otherwise looking pretty healthy. I don't expect burns on that compound leaf with 4 leaflets to really signify anything. And you can see the stem is getting thicker as well. So it's day 79. As you can see, the backup leaves are getting bigger, so that's a little puzzling. I didn't expect those to do that well, although the stems themselves look rather pathetic. The alternative stems at the bottom, I'm wondering if those are even going to make it, or are they going to be shed eventually, because they're not getting any thicker, but there are some little compound leaves down there that are much bigger than they would be on any other plant species that I'm used to dealing with. So you can see there's sort of a tear on this one compound leaflet to the left of this compound leaf with 8 leaflets, and they're getting really big. I mean, this is almost hand-sized, and they turn this nice sort of lime green at this stage before they get thicker and darker. The leaves are a little bit ruffled, and that happens with many plants actually that are just sort of domestically grown, as you will. And these newer compound leaves are very interesting in coloration. I don't even know how to describe it. It's sort of like a chocolate green. If you have a better color to describe that, please let me know in the comments. But it looks really interesting. It's not quite like the mango plants that I've grown, but it is very attractive in its own right. I almost sort of wish the coloration of the leaves would stay that way, because it's a very interesting color. It's very attractive, and we've seen some of the leaflets earlier in this video. They were sort of like a pale red. That's sort of similar to how mango leaves start. And of course, I've seen on many of my mango plants that sort of deep dark chocolate color. Other times they're purple. And overall, though, the mango is much more beautiful. It has these luscious reds and oranges and yellows. The oranges and yellows are really fascinating because they're very ephemeral in duration. Basically everything on the mango plant to the right is beautiful and very attractive, but this is not a bad ornamental plant, I would say. I think it just overall it lacks turgor pressure. So when I'm looking at compound leaves of many other trees, such as the tree of heaven, for instance, the pesky invasive that's taken over most of the U.S. Forests on the eastern half of the U.S. That tree has beautiful compound leaves that just grow straight up. Well, not straight up, but more like an erect 45-degree angle, or depending on how you want to measure it, 135 degrees, something like that from the stem. So this is quite the different appearance. The leaves are sort of ruffled, and I don't know if that's just because I'm growing this artificially in a growing medium that wouldn't occur in nature, and I'm fertilizing, so everything just gets extra big, especially in full sun. But this doesn't look too bad right now. It seems like not that much in the way of pests want to eat it. And here's this giant wasp. Well, it's not like really giant. I'm just zoomed in or really close to it. It doesn't really seem threatened by me, but it seems to be checking out these extra floral nectaries, which is what I'm assuming those things are. So it's day 107. Some unknown flying insect predator ate some of my leaves, and it has punched some holes in other places. It just looks like it brutally ripped out a huge bite or chunk. So if there were caterpillars, they'd still be around and they'd be really big at this point, but I'm not really seeing what's causing that damage. So I'm assuming it's either a locust or a katydid. This is not native to this region, the ice cream bean, of course. So, but there are insects that will be generalists and eat different species of plants, and this probably has a pretty good flavor to whatever's eating it, if that's been eaten to that degree. So luckily this is proving to be a fast grower. The nursery worker was right, and it's shooting out new compound leaves almost non-stop all over, and all of these leaflets are getting to quite a big size. I'll show you some measurements later, But yeah, they're basically like 7 or 8 inches. And I don't know if they're going to get bigger. It'd be interesting if they did, but I don't know how that would work on a compound leaf unless the petiole got really, really long. And the petiole itself is very interesting because it sort of has these like sections of leaf flanking it, as you can see on this one in the bottom center. And that one, I think, died off due to dehydration. So there are some periods of time where I don't think I was watering this enough. It's a very thirsty plant, as you can guess from the sheer surface area of all these leaves. And that's just how it looks. It looks a little bit droopy at the top for the new growth. Even when this plant is well hydrated, that's just how it's been looking in my case. So maybe it would look different in a more humid environment. So I haven't looked too much into the native environment of the ice cream bean. And it's day 126. You can see even the bottom compound leaves are getting big, and they're sort of sagging on the coco coir. And there's been a little bit of predation to the right, and most of these actually seem to be pretty pristine. So whatever's eating this, it's not bringing its friends. There's not a parent laying eggs on this thing nonstop. It's just some flying predator insect that's sort of eat and go, having this little mini buffet and just flying away. And of course, a bird would have no reason to just rip up some leaves like that and just leave. So maybe it's a flying beetle. That's another possibility. I don't really know what eats ice cream bean in this part of the world where it's probably not supposed to have predators, but like I said, there's a lot of generalist insects that will probably try anything out and eat a little bit and move on. So overall, the growth has been spectacular, and this thing is really, really taking off. It's now the largest plant, and yeah, it has a lot of nice new growth. But at the same time, the foliage, it's big, but it's not like super interesting or anything like that, and it's kind of droopy. It's probably due to the oversized nature of the leaflets, due to the way I'm growing it. But at the same time, it's kind of interesting to see something grow this fast in such a little pot. And I'm having some real struggles with the watering. And I think at some point in the series, probably around this time, I was watering every 3 days. So that's saturation watering. So there's a caterpillar here. It's a green caterpillar. And I was not able to get lucky with my Google and Bing searches like I did with the bird poop caterpillars on my lemon tree. So I don't know what it is. If you know, please let me know in the comments. So on day 139, this thing fell over, much to my annoyance. So the problem is the main trunk is askew, and the coco coir doesn't weigh enough when it's dry, which is all the time because this plant is so thirsty. I've been watering every 3 days. So on day 175, I transplanted into this new 10-gallon pot that I already got my Joshua tree into earlier this year. So the root ball is really well developed, but it's not completely saturating. It looks that way on that side, but on this side and on the bottom, it's there could still be more roots. I've seen root balls that were greater than this, but it's getting close to that point. And this is such a thirsty plant. I'm hoping that transplant will really do it some good and enable the root structure to be that much more developed and to bring much more water and nutrients to this plant. So it's day 182, and by now I've realized that this is the second fastest growing plant ever in the history of my channel, behind sweet wormwood, which is even bigger than this by I think 150 something days, I believe. So I'm pruning up new growth that shriveled up due to dehydration in the smaller pot. If you're wondering about the sleeves I'm wearing, they're called farming sleeves made by Farmers Defense, a company I just started a new relationship with. If you go to the video description, I have an affiliate link in there that will bring you to Farmers Defense so you can buy sleeves and receive a discount. So they have many different prints, and of course there are different sizes. As for sizing, I would recommend for very skinny arms, medium or smaller. For bulky, thick, or muscular arms, go with large or larger. So they're very convenient in that you can wear a shirt or a t-shirt, short sleeves, and put on these sleeves separately. And they're elastic as well. You can throw them in the washing machine to clean them, or use a soapy sponge if you choose. So that's basically one way you can get around having to use tons of suntan lotion on your arms for gardening or doing transplants or even hiking or being outside. You just won't have to use so much suntan lotion that you otherwise would be needing to apply every, say, 80 to 120 minutes. And that way I could just move my arms around, not worry about getting cobwebs and getting bug bites and things like that. Although bugs aren't really a problem here. I can imagine some of you live in climates where you're just pestered by all sorts of bugs all the time, and thorns and things like that that will scrape up your arms and break your skin, etc. So these are a good form of protection that will be easily washable afterwards. So yeah, thanks for watching my video. Please check out the affiliate link and stay tuned for further updates.